everyone, welcome back to another video. So today I have Botanicum by Maria Trolle, and I want to color a little bit using my Derwent Graphitint along with my Derwent Inktense. I just did a video where I shared my first impressions and did a bit of a review on the Derwent Graphitint. If you've not seen that yet, I'll link that in the upper right hand corner. But I did a lot of comparing in that video between the Inktense and the Derwent Graphitint. I wanted to be able to show you in this video how well they work together in a coloring book because I've been having so much fun. And so that's what we're going to do today in this video. If you check the description box down below, you'll find links down there for my Facebook group, my email list, my Etsy shop, and my Patreon if you'd like to support me there. I also now have channel membership. You can find more information out about that by clicking the join button down below the video. If you saw my previous video where I shared my first impressions and did a bit of a review on the Derwent Graphitint, you will know that these pencils have a lot of colors that are really great for landscapes. And so I thought maybe I could try my hand at a few buildings in a coloring book, and I found the perfect page here. I started coloring this part of the building here, and I love the way that these two pencils have been working together. And so I thought that I could show you exactly what I did and how it all came together in this building over here. I'm going to use the same colors because I'm not sure if I'm going to finish this page, but if I do, I want to be able to create some kind of balance on the page. So I would like this building here and this building over here to be the same color, and then this one that looks sort of like a castle in the center, I would then do with another color that would stand out from these two. Of course, this one over here would be a different color as well. This one, I see it having a lot of gold in it though, and I think that would be really pretty and stand out really nice in between these two buildings that have a lot of green in them. I have my swatch charts here, and I'm going to show you the colors that I was using. So I have one from the Derwent Inktense set, and then I have two from the Graphitint set. From the Graphitint set, I have Sage and Ivory, and so that is these two here. And then with those, I wanted to add in a little bit of a lighter green, so I chose Fern, which is a really bright, light, beautiful green from the Derwent Inktense set. And then of course I have my Derwent water brush. I have number 1. This is the thinner one, and I like to use this one. It makes it much easier to be able to do the strokes that I'm doing to create a little bit of texture on here. So for the outside of the building right here, I wanted to try my hand first at just using the Derwent Graphitint because I had not used them yet in a coloring book. This is actually my second go. I started coloring something else and I just didn't like the way that it turned out, but of course it's my very first time using the Derwent Graphitint in a coloring book, and my very first time using them along with the Derwent Inktense. When you are using a new medium that you've never used before, you will need to practice if it's something you're not familiar with, even if it's just colored pencils and you've never used colored pencils and you're very much a beginner, you will need to practice, practice, practice. I'm going to start over here on the side, and I have my Derwent Graphitint. This is the Sage, and I'm just going to lay some of this color down here. Now this is my darker color in the two colors that I'm using. You don't always have to put 3 colors together. This is a very small space that I'm covering here, and so I'm just using the 2 colors. Even over here where I did the side of the building, it was a bigger space and I still only used the 2 colors. I just used a little bit of the white of the paper to create that 3rd color. So I'm going to do the same thing over here that I did over there so you could see how I did that, but I'm just making these lines and using a bit of a stroking motion just to add this color in there, and this is going to help me to create just a little bit of texture. Now I have my ivy, and I'm just going to blend some of this color right into that other color, and I'm going to come up here towards the white, but I'm not going to go all the way into it. And I do want to make sure I get enough color down on the paper so that when I come back with my water brush, I will have enough color to be able to move around. Now I have found, experimenting with this, that a very little bit of water goes a long way, and I don't want to saturate the page. I do have a piece of paper over here to protect the other page, but that is just in case. I checked the other page and nothing went through. You could see here on the back of the page where I colored the other building, nothing went through here to the back side, but I just put that there just in case. So I'm going to use my water brush, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with my pencil, and I'm just going to go over these colors And I'm using the same motion up and down that I used when I laid the color down with the pencils. And then that helps me to still be able to keep that lighter area right in there where I wanted to keep that white. But this is just my first layer. You could leave it like that if you wanted to, or you can come back and you can lay more color down. But I do need to wait for it to dry, so we're going to do the front of the building. And for the front of the building, I'm going to use the Derwent Inktense with the Derwent Graphitint. I wanted the front of the building to be lighter, as you can see from this other one over here. And so that's why I'm using the fern from the Derwent Inktense set. If you remember from the swatch charts, there is no much lighter green in the Derwent Graphitint set. And so that's why I grabbed the fern, because I wanted to give it a little bit of a pop of color. And then this also allows me to bring the color I used from over here into the front of the building as well. And again, I'm only using 2 colors. And you can see by looking at the other one here that I did the same thing I did on the side of the building. I utilized the white of the paper to create a little bit of a highlighted effect. So in this case, I'm going to start with my fern, which is my Derwent Inktense, and I'm just going to start laying this color on the front of the building. And I am going to do the same thing that I did on the side of the building, and I'm going to come back with the other color from my Derwent Graphitint, and I'm going to blend that color right into this color. And I am still using that up and down motion so that I could keep some texture on the building, and I am also leaving a little bit of white space just as I did before. And while I'm doing the front of the building, it's going to give the side over here a chance to dry so that I can come back and add just a little bit more dimension over there. Now I have my Derwent Graphitint, which is my darker color, and I'm going to use this to create a little bit more dimension. Now remember, this was the lighter color that I used over here on the side of the building along with that sage. And since this is my darker color, I'm going to use it a lot around the windows. And the windows are fairly tiny, so up, and see, I just went into the window where I shouldn't have. But don't ever worry if you do that, because everything is always fixable. It doesn't matter if you go out of the lines or you lay a color where you don't want it. You can always use an eraser and fix it. Now down here along the edge, I want to add a little bit more of this color because this is what's going to help me to create a little bit more dimension. And then here in the corner, and you do want to make sure that you sharpen your pencil so that you've got a bit of a sharper tip on your pencil, especially if you're trying to follow along with this and you've got a lot of these little tiny windows. You don't want to do what I did and get it in the actual window frame. But I will probably just remedy that by coming over with another color or grabbing my mono eraser and pulling some of that color up before I add the water. And then right here along the top edge, I'm going to add a bit of this color. And I haven't decided yet what color I'm going to use for the roofs of these buildings quite yet. So I grabbed my mono eraser. Those of you that don't know or are new here, this is a fabulous eraser. It's called the Mono Zero. It's by Tombow, and it has this little teeny tiny tip on it, and it's great for using in your coloring books and getting into those really small spaces, like right here in this window where I got the color and I didn't want it. I'm just going to come right in here and pull that color up, and look how easily that color just came right up. This eraser is wonderful. I will always have this linked down in the description box below. So now I have my Derwent water brush, and we're going to come in here and do the same thing that we did on the side of the building. And I guess I'm just using the brush in the same way that I used the pencils, but I am still trying to leave a little bit of that white space there. And after it dries, I can always come back and change it up just a little bit. You can see that I'm using the brush to sort of pull the color into the centers where I left the white space. And that's the great thing about these. You can just pull the color anywhere that you want it. But I am loving the way that these work together. I did a search on YouTube and I did not find many other videos where anyone was using the two of these together. And I just think they're fantastic together, so I don't know why not. And it gives me another 24 colors to use with my Derwent Inktense. Because if you have the Derwent Inktense, we do only get 72 colors in that set. I wish so much they would give us more colors, but they just have not yet. I kind of wonder if they ever will. They probably won't, but we can be hopeful. I love that this is only 2 colors, and I'm still able to create something that looks really, really good with just the two colors. I only use the two colors here and the two colors here, and I love the way that it looks. And I was still able to create a whole lot of depth and dimension, but I am going to show you what I'm going to do to come back and create a little bit more depth and dimension, because if you've been watching my videos for quite some time, you know that that's definitely not enough depth and dimension for me. I really like to have the objects on my coloring pages really, really just pop out, so that when you are looking at the page, everything looks very, very 3D. So this side of the building over here should be pretty dry. I'm going to grab my two colors that I was using, and I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to go right over it. And look how nicely that color just layers. And you could either keep this dry just like this, and it really does stand out because you've already got that one layer there, or you can come back and you can go over it with water if you want to. You can do it either way. You can use these pencils with water or use them without, and the same with the Derwent Inktense. But once you add water, it changes it up so much and they just become so much more bright and vibrant. Now I have my ivy, and I'm just going to add a little bit more of this color in here. I'm trying to create a little bit of a highlight right there, so I'm still going to utilize the white of the paper. Now let's see what happens if I come back with a little bit of water. I mean, it really looks good the way that it is now. I'm adding a very little bit of water, and you could see how much darker it's getting, especially right here along this line. But I really, really love that. And I used the same technique over here, but on this one you can really see those lines. That's only because it's a much bigger space. So I have the two pencils that I used, the Derwent Graphitint in Ivy and the Derwent Inktense in Fern. I have my Derwent Inktense first. This was my lighter color, and I just want to create a little bit more depth and dimension here. And again, you can see how the color just lays right over the top. Both of these sets of pencils lay down so nicely in this book on this paper. Now I just sharpened my pencil, so this way I can make a few more lines to create a little bit more texture. The sharper your pencil is, the easier it is to do that. Now I have my Derwent Graphitint, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now this is my darker color, and I just want to be able to create a little bit of texture here. And I do still want to keep a little bit of that white there under some of those windows where I dragged the color over. But when I use a little bit harder pressure, look how dark and intense that color gets. But going over here in these corners and this top corner here and going down along the sides, this is what's going to help to create all that extra depth and dimension. I want to do the same thing over here in this corner and make it quite a bit darker. And now we're going to add a little bit of water. And if I just use that same motion, it will make those lines that I created with the pencil much more intense and more vibrant. I'm going to come back into these areas here where I wanted it a little bit whiter. I did lay some color down in there, so I'm going to spread that color out. I'm going to come in and go over some of these colors down here at the bottom where I wanted a lot more depth and dimension. But I really like that. I think it looks really good. And these are working really, really well in this coloring book. We need to finish this off, and we need to color in the roof and the chimneys. And I think we need to finish out some of these windows. And I kind of went back and forth on what colors I want to use. I was going to use yellows, and then I changed my mind because I want to be a little bit extra creative with this one. So I decided to go with shades of red, but more of a muted purplish pinkish red. So I'm going to go with this dark color from the Derwent Graphitint set. This is Port, and I'm going to use that color with this red oxide. I thought those two would be really pretty together, and it would put a little bit of a twist on things. So we're going to see how it looks. So I'm going to lay my lightest color down first. This is my red oxide, and I'm going to do the same thing here in the front. And y'all could probably tell that these are super fast, much faster than using just your regular colored pencils. They lay down on this paper so nicely. The color goes down as soon as you touch it to the paper. Up here on the roof, I'm doing it a little bit different. I do want to add more color here, but I'm not as much worried about the texture. So I did get a little bit here in the window, and so I'm just going to pull that color up. Now I have the Port, which is my darker color from the Derwent Graphitint set, and I'm going to start adding in some of this. And I'm doing this a little bit differently because instead of trying to add texture, I want to create quite a bit of dimension here in the roof. And so I'm using the darker color to go over the lines. And I'm hoping that these colors will blend together very nicely. And where the windows are, I want to make sure that I get in there like I did on the front part of the building so that I can create a little bit more dimension around those windows. So I would imagine here under the window, it would just be a little bit darker in that area. Now I have my water brush. Again, I'm still using the #1 Derwent water brush because it is the thinner one. And I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to, I think, go outward. I don't know. Let me see here. Oh, I'm going to start on the outside, and then I'm going to pull the outside inward. Always experiment a little bit first and see what works best for you before you completely decide what it is you're going to do. And these spaces are really super small. I'm going to go here along the edges, and I am still using some of that white of the paper, and I just really want to be able to keep quite a bit of that dimension. But do you see how that color is changing up so much once I add that water? And remember, I can come back a second time and go over this after it dries, which is most likely what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down here and start on the front part of the building. So parts of this video do have music. That's because I want you all to be able to see everything that I'm doing, but sometimes I need to just be quiet and not talk through the whole thing after y'all know what I'm doing, because I want to be able to concentrate. I do want to mention what helped me to decide what colors to use for the roof. I just went on Google and I pulled up some color palettes from an interior design website. And it was basically just examples of pieces of furniture that was put together. And there was a really gorgeous one that was like a couch with some pillows, and it had these shades on it. And I decided to go with that. Now, because I've got the red up here on the top, I'm going to have to bring that into the windows so that way it has a really nice balance. But after this dries, I am going to have to come back and do something else to that. Now, these windows here are laying right on top of this area here, so I'm probably going to have to bring the green up to this part and color those windows green, and the ones on the building I'll color red. And then maybe we should do the little chimney up here in green. I'm going to go ahead and do the chimney really quickly. So that was Sage from the Derwent Graphitint set, and I'm going to use the fern with the sage. And I'll probably do these windows the same way. I do need to come in here and grab an eraser and pull some of that color out. But look at these pencils, how awesome they are. When I go in here just a little bit harder, it really helps to create a whole lot of extra depth and dimension right in there. And I'm going to start in the center and then come down because I don't want to lose all that dimension that I have there. And then I'm going to wipe off my brush and I'm going to pull the center outward towards the darker colors because I just don't want to lose that. And there was a pretty big difference in these colors because I took the lightest color I used here and then the darkest color I used here, and I figured that would create a whole lot more depth and dimension than I was able to create in the actual building. I think the chimney looks really, really good. I have the sage and the fern, the same colors I used on the chimney, and I'm using the sage first. And I'm really just laying some of this color down because I'm gonna spread it out with the water. We're definitely going to have to come back and add some more color to the roof just to create a little bit more depth and dimension. But I'm going to come in here and do the windows really quick, and I said I wanted to do that with the shades of red. So I'm just going to come in here and add some port. Actually, I might go ahead and add the lighter color in as well, so that way we have a little bit of dimension, because I want to make the insides of the windows yellow. So I'm mostly just doing the corners, and this way the color could be dragged down a little bit with the water and blended into the other color once I lay it down. I would imagine with these pencils you can just use one color if you really wanted to, and it would still look fantastic. I'm just blending in some of the red oxide to that other darker color. Now I have my water brush and I'm just going to go around all the windows, and I'm not trying to do anything extra special here. house is so cute. I love the way that it's turning out. So we do need to come back with the port and the red oxide, and I'm going to add a little bit more dimension here on the top of the building now that it's dry, and then after the windows are dry, I'm going to come in and add a pop of yellow. And now I have my water brush, and I'm just going to go over a little bit of this. And you could probably tell that it did look just fine without me bringing in the water. The water just makes the color a bit more vibrant and spreads it out just a little bit. And you can see that I still left a lot of white in there just to create a little bit more depth. But oh my gosh, I think I love these pencils as much as I do my Derwent Inktense, and I feel like now I just have extra colors to use with my Derwent Inktense, because if you saw my first impressions and video review of the Derwent Graphitint, you know that the colors are not the same. They are 24 completely different colors, and they just work so well with them. Now we just need to add a little bit of yellow in the windows. I think I'm going to use an Inktense for that, because if you look at the Derwent Graphitint, you can tell that we don't have any yellow in this set. That's why it's so cool that we can use them both together, but I really want the windows to look like there is light coming out of them, so I'm going to go with this color here. So I grabbed the Sherbet Lemon from the Derwent Inktense set, and it's a really beautiful, bright, vibrant yellow. And we are going to go ahead and add a bit of this inside each one of the windows. How about if I add just a little right here to show that the reflection is coming through the window? I think that'll be a little bit different, a nice little added touch. So I'm just going to do that in a couple places, and you could see that this color goes right over the other colors that are there, but it makes it look like there's a reflection coming through every one of those little windows. So now I'm glad I left a little bit of that white there. And sometimes it's fun to be a little bit extra creative and do something like that. That is what makes coloring so much fun. Oh, I love that so much. Oh, I forgot to do these up here. So let me just add a little bit of color, and then I'm just going to go over it because this will intensify the color, especially since it's a Derwent Inktense. Look how bright that yellow gets. So now that I went over every one of the windows, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go over those areas where I added a little bit of that reflection from the windows and really make that pop. So see how I changed it up from what my original plan was? If y'all have been following me for quite some time, you know that I do that quite often. So my building is done, and I hope y'all enjoyed this video. But you can definitely use the Derwent Inktense with the Derwent Graphitint. They work together absolutely beautifully, and it really helps to have those extra additional 24 colors. Now, if you are someone who only has the Derwent Graphitint set of 24 and you only have these colors, then it would probably be a really great idea to add on something like the Derwent Inktense, because it gives them so much more value. I would have never had that bright, vibrant yellow to add to the inside of the windows, even though I was doing a page that was very landscapey, if that's even a word. But I'm glad I had the extra colors just to be able to add a little bit of brightness to it, because y'all know I'm all about having those highlights, and even though a lot of this is much more muted in tone, it still has that pop of color, and I absolutely love that. If y'all have any questions about either one of these sets of pencils, whether it be the Derwent Graphitint or the Derwent Inktense, feel free to leave those down in the comments below. Everything that you've seen me use in this video will be linked in the description box so that you can easily find it. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Happy coloring. Bye.